Welcome back to Bad Movies Rule, and today we're discussing an Air Force movie that came out in 1986. No, the other one. It's Iron Eagle.
Chappie.
Or its alternate title, How on Earth Did They Get Lou Gossett Jr. to be in this movie?
There was like 4 of these things.
4 times they got Lou Gossett Jr.
Yeah, one wasn't enough.
Apparently not.
He wanted money.
He had a beach house he needed to pay for.
Right. Or a Lamborghini or something he wanted.
Yeah, imagine being the other Air Force movie from 1986.
And, just by stark comparison right off the bat,
Yeah.
I mean, I love this movie. Don't get me wrong. I love them both.
Yeah.
But the shots, the actual combat shots in this movie were absolutely 100% stock footage from somewhere else, just dubbed over.
And I think I've got a reason why that is, and we'll get into that. Not even necessarily budgetary, but talent. What I did appreciate, I always appreciate we go back to the 80s, guys.
Oh, yeah.
The 80s were a great time.
Cars were awesome.
Where a guy could take on an entire army by himself.
Not a guy, but a guy and his teenage buddies.
When a child can take on an entire army by himself.
High schooler, day after prom.
Graduated.
Yeah, graduated, yeah.
Wait, he did graduate.
He did.
He did graduate.
Well, welcome in, guys. As you've probably heard, we've got Clint Bush with us this morning. Clint, how are you?
I'm doing awesome, man. We're having a good time.
I appreciate that you're up here, even though Google is down in your shop right now.
Yeah, they're taking some 360 photos, so we're going to have a little bit better website experience. Hopefully, people can come in and look through the shop a little bit without having to come in and look through the shop.
There you go.
Nice.
Awesome. And joining us this morning is Ryan Mueller. Ryan, how are you?
Doing well. Looking forward to talking about this one because, I usually watch it twice. My wife shamed me into not watching this one twice.
So you've never seen this one before?
I've seen it once.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Ryan is also the host of Living with Liberty, and so check him out on whatever app you're using to listen to this. It's probably on there as well. And then also joining us, we got the whole crew from The Postman back because Charles Hewitt is here with us. Charles, how are you, brother?
Thank you for letting me back, even though I didn't pick Will Patton.
No. You're all right. See, I had forgotten about that. You shouldn't have said anything.
Shouldn't have brought it up.
I know. I'm doing well, actually.
Good. And you brought props with you.
I did bring props. I love
today.
airplanes, and this movie was a childhood favorite.
Well, this is so.
I'm finally on board. I'm on Team Hewitt here on this one.
All right.
Yeah, me and you.
Yeah, we got it.
Well, this is so. Tell us what you brought here. We've got a little tiny.
Okay, so that's a plastic mold I got. My kids got from some museum. That is an actual F-16 fighting Falcon.
Look at that.
Yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
and this is a radio-controlled timber, which is not anything in the movie, but
No, but it
closest
looks
I
similar.
had to a Cessna.
Okay. Awesome. So you're a pilot.
I'm a radio control pilot.
Okay, but that's more of a pilot than I
Yes,
am.
it's true.
You stand on the ground and have to.
I wear aviators for a reason.
That's right. You're gonna rock those the whole episode.
I am, except it's
Oh,
kind
I
of
love
dark.
it. I love it.
This
Well,
is
if you
gonna
can
be a dark episode.
Turn up the brightness on your screen so
Yeah,
that
that's
you
right.
can
I'm gonna
see
have to, 'cause,
what you're doing out
that
there.
Blue blockers is like, what's happening here? My polarized
my goodness.
lenses.
All right, let's get the vitals for this movie out of the way. I think this will start to shed some light on, kind of where we stand and why this movie qualifies to be on our podcast. And this film, Iron Eagle, was released in 1986 but actually about 6 months before another very popular Air Force movie from 1986.
They
Not Air
they
Force.
totally
Navy,
ripped this
Navy,
off.
Not Air Force.
Navy aviators, yeah.
Navy. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah, you'll mess that up.
Navy.
They're gonna
I
hate
don't want
you.
people to get upset with me.
You just lost your audience.
Bad movies rules.
Yeah.
Mistake number 1 for this episode.
This is the worst movie podcast of all time. I say this all the time so that people have no expectation.
Perspective's
Right.
important.
If I just, if you're starting to rage because of the Navy Air Force thing, send us an email. This show is trash at gmail.com and just let it out. Okay. It's good to let it out. Don't hold it in. Let it out. This movie was directed by Sidney Furie. Now, this guy's filmography, if you ever get a chance to go on and look at it, is full of some incredible movies. This is the guy that directed Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
There was a 4th one?
There was a 4th one?
Yeah, the Christopher Reeves, the one they made him do so that he went to the studio and wanted to make this passion project. And they're like, yeah, if you do a Superman 4, we'll let you do it. And he just was not interested in being in that movie, and it was terrible. He fights Nuclear Man. You don't remember that movie at all?
No.
Oh, my gosh. It's a pile, okay? He also made this movie in 2003 called Detention, starring Dolph Lundgren, who is a teacher where terrorists take over the school.
Next episode, Detention with Dolph Lundgren.
That sounds amazing. I can't really picture him as a teacher to begin with. Like, how'd that happen?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's just full of, he's definitely a B movie director. So he
It's
also,
not a bad place to be.
no, I mean, he's had a career. Look, his IMDb, it's got a movie that's 20, 30
some of
long.
these directors probably make millions. This guy's still probably making a living.
He's making a living,
What
yeah.
the heck? He's working. It's a job.
He co-wrote it with Kevin Elders, who doesn't really have a lot of other writing credits except for 3 of the 4 Iron Eagle movies. I can't believe they got 3 sequels out of this. Starring Jason Gedrick, Lou Gossett Jr., and how do you say David Suchet?
Yes, he's one of my favorite actors. He's amazing as Poirot.
Yeah, Suchet.
He's also in a lot of really crappy movies.
He's done a lot of those like TV movies of Poirot and stuff too, right? Hasn't he?
Well, it was the British Poirot series he was in, which was highly well done. But he's also in things like Harry and the Hendersons.
He also played another Middle Eastern terrorist in Executive Decision. Has any of you seen? I know you've seen it.
Yes.
I only remember that Steven Seagal died at the very beginning, which was the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
I think I pretty much stopped watching after that.
Kurt Russell is my favorite actor of all time, so it's a great movie, and he also is in that too. This movie had a budget of $18 million and made 24. So
made a profit.
Maybe that's why we ended up with because it made $6 million.
It made some money, so let's do 3 more.
I can't remember the other one, so possibly they just
pump them out.
Cycled the footage of the flying in the others and save some money. I don't know.
I bet you the budgets on the subsequent ones were way cheaper.
I have a feeling we're going to end up doing all 4 of these at some point.
God, I hope so.
I do know on IMDb the second movie got a 3.8.
I was just going to say that you have to do them because it's 3.8, 3.7, and 3.3.
So bad.
I mean, this one was 5.5, I think. So
5.5.
That's right in the
and
range.
This one is
good
twice as good as the other 2 or other 3.
5.5, which means it's still lower than Air America, which was at 5.9. That's like the Air America metric is just going to be how we judge whether something's.
I wasn't in that show, but I like Air America.
I know you do.
Yeah.
And
do it.
Right.
You and your aviation movies,
That's
you guys
true.
love
that
it.
Could be. I have a weakness.
This movie is sitting currently at a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, but
That seems a little low.
57% audience score, which is just
seems about right.
Just shy of not being rotten, because 60% is where they say it's certified fresh or whatever.
That seems about right to me. I think the audience gets that right.
All right, so Charles, you got to tell me. Now is the time we would normally say, what are your overall impressions of the movie, just in a general sense? And it's clear that you've had a long-standing love affair with it. So explain to me why you love this movie so much.
So here's the interesting thing about this. So I loved this movie as a kid because I love airplanes and flying. I always wanted to be a full-scale pilot. Never worked out in my life. That's why I fly RC. And I love airplanes and all that sort of stuff, right? So as a kid, I loved this. And the thing I particularly loved about it was the idea that a kid could fly a Cessna the way he does, which is unbelievable, and then fly an F-16. But then the most impressive thing to me was the Walkman.
The Walkman
always
strapped to his leg.
That was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
And
like
his soundtrack was awesome. Every song he played was a jam.
I don't know where he keeps all the tapes he has, but nonetheless,
he swaps it out every.
Yeah, I know, but where is he? I don't know. Anyways, so I loved it as a kid. I watched it, I don't know, a month or 2, maybe longer, with my wife, and I was crushed because I'm like, this is a terrible movie.
Yep.
And then you invited me to watch to do the show, and I watched it last night, and I finished it this morning, and I've come back to this is a good movie. Yeah. I enjoyed this film.
So you've run the emotional gamut.
I have run the gamut of loving to how could I like this? It doesn't hold up to. All right, I'm back on board.
All right.
It's a pretty fun movie.
And I imagine that he's, when he runs in, when he gets into these planes, that his flight suit has just got a cassette in every pocket of his flight suit.
He has to. He has to.
Now,
Flight
that
suits
being
do
said,
have many pockets.
And it was the 80s, so probably rolled in the sleeve too.
Right. The story is preposterous, of course.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But it's what I thought about this morning is I finished it off. What was interesting was it really is, not to get too deep in this, but it really kind of is a morality tale of father-son love, friendship, love.
Yes.
that sort of thing. It's really
Wow.
what it's about, right?
I cried.
I didn't cry.
I totally cried.
But
I didn't cry.
I cried
either.
too, but for a different reason.
I was trying to trick you into saying you cried.
I cried that some of the best actors in the world are in the movie.
Psych, I didn't cry, you did.
But
All right.
that's interesting. You don't see very many movies where there's this father-son bond that's that strong. And
I
then the
wanted my
friendship
dad to love
part.
me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Would you rescue, Ryan, if your dad was in the Middle East? Would you fly a jet over there and take on an entire army?
Only in the movies.
Yeah.
I think we all would. I don't think we all could.
That's about it. Would I want to? Yes.
I
Could
could fly an RC plane if you got me close enough.
All right, perfect.
Drone.
Perfect. They from far off, it would look like there's a plane coming, and then they'd get
Oh, what the heck?
Ryan, where do you stand on this movie?
Well, so it's interesting because my wife and I were watching it, and my son walks in. He goes, "What is this? Fake Top Gun?"
No, this is better than Top Gun. It was first. Top Gun copied these guys.
And then I'm sitting here watching it. I'm thinking, man, this. You know what? This is like, yeah, it kind of is discount Top Gun, but I think it's like store closing clearance Top Gun. Like everything's 90% off.
Wish.com Top Gun.
Exactly.
Liquidation.
It's
As
liquidation
the youngster says,
Top
it's
Gun.
great value Top Gun.
My wife fell asleep about half hour before the end of the movie. I was kind of dozing off, but by the end of the movie, I'm like, it's.
Yeah.
I think to Charles' point, I think it's the premise of the story is good. A father son, obviously
Yeah.
a great relationship there, right? I mean, they had flashbacks of him. He's like covertly sneaking his son into his plane on his practice flights or whatever, and
Yeah.
Or not so covertly.
and I know it's to me there wasn't an air of plausibility to it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like the premise. I could see it working more if, say, the son was like actually in the Air Force as even just a pilot in training.
Right.
Okay, it becomes more plausible. But you've got this kid and all these other kids running
Yeah.
through like classified areas
Right.
of the air base,
Even the-
sneaking intelligence and everything else. It's like,
Yeah. So you're saying even if he had been still like 18 years old, but like 6 months into his,
it becomes more
beginning of his
plausible.
career.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
Or
more plausible.
I say let's go this route. Let's get rid of the planes altogether and insert trucks. All right, Dad is a trucker and he's working at the trucking company and occasionally
Yeah.
sneaking his kid into the truck and driving loads and stuff like that. That I could see.
Yep.
But yeah, on a military base, so the
what-
kids
I
of
think
the
a
people
trucking
in the military.
Well, so when he makes his
Have
drop
better
off for like
security,
Tyson
though.
chicken, they put him in
Exactly.
the
They-
walk-in freezer. Or what's
Exactly.
The sad part is the
You're too
trucking
close to the
company-
Purdue plant.
The sad part is the trucking company would have better security than U.S. Air Force did.
Apparently, it would.
Especially if you're delivering chicken, right? The
Those-
FDA, man, they're not messing around.
Those plants, man, you have to basically sometimes give a firstborn to get your truck into any of
That's
these
true.
You are in
plants.
Purdue
That's
ground
right.
space.
That's right. Before the sentence is over, they're firing missiles.
Right.
Too. All right, Clint, where are you at overall on this movie?
Watched this movie as a kid a million times again. Wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah.
We went to the air show up
Yeah.
in Oshkosh every year as family. I love the planes. It had nothing to do with the movie. I think I just love the planes, and I don't know. When I was watching this first, it was the little kid brother. That's where I was mostly. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, I'm that kid's age, and then we go through older into high school and stuff. I still watch the movie, probably every 6 months, twice a year, something like that. I come back on, throw the tape in. My dad owns it. It's at the house somewhere on
right.
VHS. And it's just one of those movies we watched a trillion times. Like Hewitt here, Team Hewitt,
Yeah.
all the way. We watched this movie about a year ago, and it was like, okay, it's there. It comes around draft time. I was like, oh, we doing it. I'm picking this thing. We put it back in. I watched it again Saturday evening. I was like, yes, this movie is good. It's not good because it's a good movie. I like
No.
the story.
That's true.
It's engaging. So
Yeah, I don't know if it necessarily. I mean, yes, it was first. Okay, with Top Gun.
I was kidding when I said that.
From what I gathered in reading the backstory of all this, it was more of a the studio was like, we got to rush this out because Top Gun is coming and they want to
Yeah.
beat it to the finish
Otherwise,
line.
no one will watch
which
this.
you can kind of tell that they kind of just rushed it out. But
There is a sad connection between those two movies. You know what that is?
what's that?
On IMDb, the guy that actually flew the Cessna flew Master's plane.
Oh, during the
through
race.
the canyon.
Yeah.
Was a photographer pilot for the flat spin scene with Goose.
Okay.
He actually died in that.
No way.
Oh, I knew a stunt had died in Top Gun. That was the same guy that
same guy.
flew the. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a weird actual.
Look at that.
connection.
Must not have been too many guys there sharing the same guys for these
Yeah.
movies.
No, well, that guy, that scene in the canyon with the airplane is really spectacular.
That is
cinematography,
good.
flying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really good stuff.
Here's what I'll say about the movie, man. I mean, the dialogue.
Oh yeah.
So smooth.
It's so amazing.
So natural.
Yes.
Such acting.
Man, again, way out of order here, but when the daughters go in to grab intelligence from dad,
Right.
and she goes to trip in and
she just
like,
throws-
no, she threw her drink on him. There was no like the other daughter kind of jokingly tripped. There was zero plausibility
They
to
should
the
have just
situation.
thrown a pitcher's mound out there for her and just wind up and let her have it.
Yeah,
I will say, I think
the movie was full of that.
there was a feat in this movie that was really impressive, that they were able to make F-16 combat dull.
That
Yes.
is-
And that's really impressive to me because it's inherently exciting. I like watching this stuff.
They-
And
Yeah,
They
planes are
tried to
awesome.
make that footage
Yeah.
really interesting, which every time a plane banked off to the left or to the right, and you could tell that it was the same footage, just
Yes.
like they flipped the negative and
Yeah.
rolled it the other way.
Exactly.
But like they added the Star Wars door closing noise every time.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
I will say there
planes make that noise when you turn them.
they must. They have
Yes.
to.
there are three elements to the movie that I did actually really enjoy, and we'll get through all those because we're going to dive in here to the movie. But the last thing I'll say about this film is there, like I said, three parts I liked overall. This movie had no business being 2 hours long.
No.
Back then, everything was long. You had all this character building.
You
at the
you
beginning.
got to get to 90 minutes on a movie like this.
But you have to build the character, actually.
I almost had to stop and like come back the next day. I was falling asleep. There was just a lot of this movie that did not need to be in there.
I tuned out the middle section quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got distracted on my phone for a little while. Maybe that's why I liked it better this time.
Right.
that middle section that drags a little. I
the
sort of
memes in the
skipped
middle
over.
that were better.
But I did appreciate the soundtrack. I appreciated the 80s-ness
Soundtrack was good.
of it all,
Amazing.
right? And just the idea that a kid could take on an army. It's such a 1980s thing
Yep.
that I love. I'm here for that. So let's jump in, guys. Let's just go. We're going to go plot for plot point for the most part straight through this movie and just kind of pull it apart, kick the tires, and see if at the end we can determine whether or not this is actually a bad movie that rules, or a straight up good movie. So the
Second one.
The movie starts with dad's dogfight. We'll just call it dad's dogfight. Okay.
Sure.
This is the first 5 minutes. There's a battle scene.
He was able to wax 3 of those bastards before he bit them.
Yeah.
That's all that matters right there. Boom. 3-1.
I didn't actually see him get 3 in the actual.
I only saw
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, I was confused on the number.
But hey,
there.
they said.
But that's not unusual in
I think they
combat
said
to
3.
get that number mixed up.
Yeah, but it was, guys, for a dogfight, I was like, it's pretty dull, don't you
Right.
think?
There's definite disconnect from each plane engagement to the next plane engagement as well. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think this comes down to directors, right? Because you've got like Tony Scott shooting combat footage, and you've got Sidney Fury shooting for the Superman 4 guys shooting combat footage, and that's why you end up with quality.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
talking about the aerial quality.
But let's
like
assume,
footage.
too, that we never saw Top Gun or a movie of that caliber, too.
Yeah.
This had just come out. That's where the $6 million. They wouldn't have made $6 million if this was 6 months after Top Gun. The first 15
No.
people would have seen it and been like, "What is this garbage?"
Yeah.
This literally had less action than the Afterburner video game we used to play.
Right.
Which was an F-14 from Top Gun. Here's my thought on the flying, the military flying particularly.
Yeah.
The initial scenes are okay; they're pretty entertaining. It's the fact that they're over and over, and the only thing they ever do is spin.
Right.
It gets a little tedious at the end of the movie. You're like, oh, he's spun,
Yeah,
and
it's-
somehow now he's behind the guy, but that
Yeah.
was a lateral spin.
It's
It wasn't a roll.
I didn't know you could roll out and
Yeah.
roll out and dodge a surface
They had
to air
like
missile.
three maneuvers that they did. I mean, I think we've all watched air shows,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How many maneuvers they did. They had like 3 that they put
right.
on loop.
So I-
like
right.
Clint said, they put
Well,
in
it was
reverse.
two.
Right.
It was 2 maneuvers, and one they just flipped the film and put it back in and rolled it the other way.
There's one scene towards the end where he I think Chappie had told him on the tape, climb high, and you see the plane climbing. flying, but you clearly see the landing gear down. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
really a takeoff
So
moment. You're like,
they
when
were
you
at-
lower his gear. That's really ill-advised, Doug Masters.
They were
you
at
should not be in
someone's,
combat
yeah.
right now.
They're at some airbase somewhere filming takeoffs and landings for the
Right.
film.
Israel, actually. Israel,
Well, it's like they got the stunt flyer out there, and he did one barrel roll and one other thing, and the guy's like, "All right, we got it,
Yeah, got it. Right.
got it. We've been up here 10 minutes." He's like, "Oh, I could use this 16 times.
Yeah.
We're good." But there's no that first dogfight. There's no music, right? It's just like I said. I'm like, oh my gosh, this should be exciting. It's not.
This
Yeah,
could have
music
something-
would have been exciting. It
Yeah.
would. I think it would have added to it for sure.
This could have had something to do with just maybe Navy pilots are better than Air Force pilots.
They are.
Oh my
Controversy.
Oh my goodness.
What?
One
We
of them
just
takes
triggered
off
so many
from a-
people.
Hate
One
mail.
of them takes
Hate
off from
mail.
an aircraft carrier and one from a long runway.
That's
I think
right.
Clearly, Navy's better.
Hate
Navy all
us.
the way. If I could have flown in the military, which I couldn't have because I was
Also, one of my favorite things in these planes is the breaking news display. Breaking news: a missile has been fired at you.
in that 80s green
I-
Right.
9
Dot
point.
matrix.
I almost.
Like
I
your little
almost.
football game.
I
Yeah,
almost thought of making the airplane display there my Will Patton Award winner.
it was like a news ticker, right?
the
It was like
information guy.
you're not watching that. By the time you read a missile has been fired, you're blown out of
Next
the sky.
up coming across there was Microsoft is up $2. IBM up $3.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
The film company for this down.
But so Dad he's shot down and captured by an undetermined, never named in the movie, Middle Eastern
Sovereign country.
sovereign
Obviously
country.
Libya.
Right. You think it's obviously?
gotta be
It's all right. It's gotta be Libya.
Semi-obvious.
So okay, that's fine. We'll go with Libya. Sure. We just
make it
triggered.
up.
We just triggered everybody from the Air Force and any Libyan that might be listening.
Sorry, both of you guys.
I mean,
This
that
is
was,
why-
that was the height, wasn't that like the height of Gaddafi's like thing where he was doing all?
Yeah, I
this
mean at that
stuff?
point in the time. Yeah, so they just didn't want to say who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we then meet Doug. We'll just call him Flyboy for the duration.
Baby.
Fly baby.
Fly baby. Yeah, about it.
He is a teenager. He's a senior in high school. We know this because his mother references that he's got a graduation coming up.
Graduate.
And he's got to go
Because
to prom.
it's important that we know that, because if we were just to meet and look at him and his friends, we would assume that they're all 35 years old.
Right.
Right.
Well, maybe him 31, but the other ones, absolutely.
Which goes to your point. If they had made him older, it would have worked better, right?
Right.
It would've been a
Becomes
little
more plausible.
believable.
This was definitely an 80s thing. I feel like nowadays, you watch shows like on like some of these newer series on Prime or Netflix, like Stranger Things, like the quality of child acting is so much better now
Yeah.
that they don't feel they have to cast 30-year-olds as teenagers. And so a lot of times they'll cast actual teenagers nowadays.
Yeah.
Or early 20s, I think is still passable.
Yep.
But back in the 80s, they were doing this all the time. I mean, it's hilarious to go back and watch.
How long was Michael J. Fox a teenager?
Well, for till at least
41.
the 90s when he was,
He was 41. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
they
he was.
They didn't have like Facebook filters or nothing back
Right,
then.
that's
So you
true.
gotta,
That's true.
Well, they didn't have high def either, so you couldn't tell.
No, maybe that's true. Now that it's all in HD, we're like, oh gosh,
I thought Doug passed okay.
Doug Pat. Well, Doug was only 21 years
yeah.
old.
Yeah, he
And
he
he
was
was okay.
of
Yeah.
age.
His
The others
acting
were
was enough that I could believe he might be a teenager. Some of the
Yeah.
teenage boys I hang out with in youth ministry and stuff. That
yeah, if you have a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, boy, then that's pretty much like having a 17-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So he goes to this hot dog place and he's going to hang out with his friends there. Okay, and his main friends are Reggie, Milo, and Tony. Okay, Milo was 22 years old. He was older than Doug, even though he looked younger. Tony was 30 years old.
Okay.
No joke, actually 30 years old. And then Reggie was 26.
Okay.
And they're all playing high schoolers.
What the guy on the motorcycle?
yeah,
Yes.
That guy was ancient.
Yeah.
He was, no, I looked him up too. Kochner or whatever his name was. He was like 34.
Yeah.
Notcher.
Notcher.
You were way close. Cochner is way more
34.
accurate to his character.
I thought it was Kochner,
Notcher,
but
yeah.
there's Notcher. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, these guys are it's just ridiculous. But Notcher pulls up and he's harassing. They're at the hot dog
girlfriend,
place,
yeah.
and the girlfriend pulls in, played by Melora Hardin, who was actually 19 years old at the time, and went on to be Jan in The Office. Was the girl that played the girlfriend? She's awesome. So, but anyway, they're honking their horns and giving her a hard time.
She's driving a Mazda.
Is she really?
It's a nice Mazda.
You guys pay attention to that kind of stuff.
I was impressed with the 80s cars in that.
Well, they had some good cars. I mean, had like a 64
65.
Mustang
yeah,
he was
what's
rolling
that?
around in.
It was automatic, which was a bummer. But
Well, I mean,
But like, who's giving their kid letting them
Seriously.
run around
Well,
in the
I
64
started-
who's giving their kid a Cessna? What kid owns an airplane?
so I had a question on the Mustang. You're a car guy, right?
Yes.
So in the 80s, a 60s Mustang, was it valuable or people were like, we're over that?
semi-valuable. They could be had. I remember looking through the Trading Times as a kid, and a couple I passed on. Cause my dad said, "Oh, it's probably all rusted out for that price," and stuff. He
So
was
would
probably
that have
right.
been a realistic kid car,
Yeah,
maybe?
especially down in the Southwest and everything. All those cars are in nicer condition, and therefore the
And I
values.
guess by then they
kinda
weren't like
drop
the
in.
cultural icon they are kind of now. Or at
I
least
suppose.
everyone would
Yeah.
love that car now, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, the guy, anyway, the Notcher is giving his girlfriend a hard time, and so he goes over there to confront him, but he made sure to like set it up with his friends in advance to hold him back, so he looks super tough,
Right.
because they did that like 2 different times. Hold me back, man.
They almost held him back before he started.
That's what I'm saying. I
Well,
know.
the other thing I thought was funny in that scene is she starts to tell him, and then he runs before she
away.
even finishes telling him what they were doing.
Right.
He's so eager. To
Well, I mean, he didn't need to tell him.
Yeah,
He,
he didn't-
saw
he
it
didn't have to know.
when
yeah,
they
that's
pulled
true. He
in.
did see it.
Yeah, and so I appreciate that the two of them. He's like, you honked at my girlfriend.
Right.
We're gonna fight. No, you can't fight because the cops. All right, and so they come up with a non-violent solution, which
Right.
I appreciate.
Yeah, for teenagers. that's
Let's
pretty good,
race.
Semi-nonviolent.
Well, we find out actually
He's trying
it's
to kill him.
murderous.
Right.
right? What was that
Yeah.
kid's name? Jacob something? The whatever
Yeah.
the kid name was.
And
What about Jacob?
that's right. And they have this idea, this harebrained idea, to race
The snake.
a Cessna with a 250cc dirt bike.
Oh, that thing was a twin. I don't think, it might have been a 250, but a 250 go 85, 90 miles an hour. I love how they're, again, we're going to skip to the end of this because I've been waiting. At the end of this, they are basically neck and neck running down a runway.
Yes. Yeah.
This 140 plus mile an hour plane is running with the flaps down at
Yes, the
stall.
flaps. Yes, what is going on with
stall,
that?
Trying to slow down enough to keep up with this probably
Yeah,
80 mile an
it's-
hour flat out
Right.
dirt bike.
It's
Yeah.
clear that the stunt pilot, who's very accomplished,
awesome at
trying
this.
to make that close.
I mean,
Yes.
because no one who's trying to win a race in an airplane
Yeah.
would have the flaps down.
And that plane is dipping left
Yeah.
to right. I mean,
Right.
it is so close to stall, like 10 feet off the ground. It's insane.
That's what I'm saying. Well, there's so supposedly they even it out by saying he can't go higher than 50 feet off
Right.
the ground, but it's still not going to be a close race.
Shouldn't
No,
Well-
it shouldn't be, and it shouldn't have mattered that
Especially
he took
if
the
he
shortcut
took the whole
either.
road.
No.
Right, right.
well, I mean,
Take
it
Road's
could
a
be-
road, man.
If an airplane is confined to canyons,
Right.
that's a different matter,
Right,
right?
'cause now he's gotta
that's
fly the
not
canyon.
the
Right.
natural environment for an airplane. It's supposed
Right.
to fly over the canyon. That's the whole point, that you
Right.
don't have to go through the canyon. But the end is stupid because of the flaps.
Yeah.
Exactly. I saw that
So,
too.
okay,
and I'm like,
take
why doesn't he
everything
put the
else
flaps
out?
up and beat the race and land
Yeah.
the plane?
Or leave the flaps down and just rip it, I mean, what the heck? You
I
still
mean,
got
I
to pace a
suppose
dirt
they
bike.
messed with his oil cap.
Here's what you guys don't
Right.
understand, because they tell you how he's able to win. He says, keep on rocking those tunes because you're zooming.
Oh,
Yes.
music
Right?
has the power to
He
make
was
you go faster. change your
propelled
time.
forward by the
Yes.
power of rock and roll.
Yes.
But if you were watching the gauges in that plane. when
You
the thing-
watch the gauges?
Absolutely.
I love you guys.
If you're watching the gauges in that plane, when it starts puffing smoke out, the oil pressure drops to from 50 to 10.
Yeah.
I would assume it's at 0 shortly after because
Yeah.
it's going down
Losing
awful
all the
quick.
oil.
You're
Yep.
losing oil.
Yeah.
But he flies another
yeah, he goes a long way.
film time of a minute and a half. So
And his
who
buddies
knows
are
in
like,
real
land
life?
the plane. But
Right.
where is he
When you're
gonna
only
land?
5 feet off the ground, what's
Yeah.
the difference?
That's what
Yeah.
I thought too.
It's like
not
it's just
that
going to land when it
dangerous.
runs out of horsepower. It's just going to stop.
Yeah, it's going to stall out and
And I loved in that scene too. Every time he touched down, it made squeaks like he was on asphalt. Right. But he's on dirt.
The other issue too, they go down the runway. Everything is cool. He's trying to not land the plane the whole time. He's going that
Right,
slow.
right.
They go through the ticker tape, and then all of a sudden, instead of just backing off the throttle and landing,
Yeah.
he veers off into
Yeah.
the nothingness
Right.
and crashes the plane for
Yeah.
no good reason. You're on the runway already. Just
Right.
land.
that. And I didn't get the plane crash either because he was only 5 feet off the ground.
Well, and his
Right.
buddies landed on the runway just
Well,
fine
no,
behind
because he
him. You
hit
see him
the.
coming.
Well, that's what
Well,
I'm
I know
saying.
he
He
hit
hit the
the-
runway and then went off the runway into the bumps, and then the bump knocked out the landing
For
gear.
no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just stay straight?
And that ticker tape thing seemed like it would
That
be
was the most
awfully
dangerous part of the whole
like
thing.
awfully dangerous.
Yeah.
Right, let's fly through this
Yeah.
guy.
brother. Like, mean, why are the airport people allowing this crap to go on? Like, come on, this is stupid. Call the cops. This is really dangerous.
And Chappie somehow knew it was going on because this is the first time he meets Chappie.
Yep.
He's fixing up his engine.
And twice Chappie uses gum to do stuff.
Right.
Yes.
To close the cow and then turn off the radio.
That's right. So
Well, my question too is when did the dude mess with the cat between Chappie doing his thing?
well, there's a little quick shot if you see it where you
is
see
there?
him in the
Oh,
background literally
I must have been distracted.
and that's the thing that was disconcerting to me, right? That he right before the race, the bad teenagers were adult teenagers were
The bad teenagers in quality and in character.
we're straight up willing to kill this person
right.
over a race.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Like I think he even says, I wonder what a Cessna looks splattered on the
Yeah,
mountains.
seriously, there's some really hardcore people.
Pretty nasty.
Right.
I think we have some associative personality disorders.
Maybe they hated each other before that. And we
could
didn't
be.
see this.
Well, they clearly had some blood for some reason.
I will say I think that this sequence was the best shot sequence of flying in the movie.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
The stunts the planes did, the Cessna up over the mountain in that sort of not knife edge, but the turn he does up the top echelon, that's amazing.
Well, yeah, and as you say, they had an awesome stunt pilot in there.
Yes.
Rest in peace. And the thing that is really impressive to me, I mean, I will give you the nonsense. Okay, a Cessna versus a dirt bike,
Cessna.
whatever. But at least make it, and they made it entertaining. At least, even though it's completely ridiculous, I'm willing to give you your ridiculousness, but just make it entertaining. And
It was entertaining.
Yeah.
That whole sequence there, the race, was probably the most entertaining part of the movie.
Oh,
and
by far.
you have a movie with MiGs and F-16s in it.
But here,
And we're getting excited over a Cessna racing a dirt bike.
and here we go, James. Here's your unforgivable.
Yes.
The payoff that doesn't matter.
You're right.
All right, let's have a race so that we don't involve the cops because violence will bring the cops in.
Right.
And at the end, he punches him in the face and knocks him out anyway.
Right.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
You hear me now?
And does major damage to an airplane.
And nothing happens.
That's true.
There's no cops.
Yeah.
There is
So
none.
why didn't he just beat him up in the parking lot? No
Exactly,
cops.
because it didn't matter.
Oh, I never
Thank
thought
you.
about that.
Stupid planes.
That's some good. Here's the other thing. I think I am pretty positive that
Yeah.
Cessna gave them money because
Oh.
Cessna is
Otherwise,
on his
Honda
shirt,
would've won.
which is a very cool shirt. But,
Oh, so he has a Cessna shirt on.
but the other thing at the end,
You guys are way more detailed than I'm-
Apparently, he's an incredible Cessna pilot. And I thought
Yes.
that's kind of weird. That'd be like saying Charles is a great Ford driver.
Right,
Like,
right. Quite an accomplished Cessna
quite
pilot.
a Cessna pilot. Cessna's a type of airplane.
A brand
You
of,
would say
yeah.
he's an incredible pilot.
he's
Right.
great at
Put him in something
using
else and he's
Yeah.
worthless.
Every time they referred to his plane, it was fuel up my Cessna.
Okay, so how does he have a plane? That's the other
They
thing.
all have a plane.
Right. Well, yeah, they all had planes,
They're Air Force kids.
I guess.
Maybe they make more money than Navy guys.
We're just gonna keep beating that horse.
spoiled rich Air Force kids.
Get to stay way back behind the fighting lines.
Well, speaking of behind the fighting lines, we find out that Dad is a prisoner right after this of unnamed Middle Eastern country, Libya, and the Air Force debriefs him on, what's happening. So he breaks into, this is the kind of the first time where he breaks into the Air Force base. I mean, he's running past all these officers and
Right.
soldiers, and he gets all the way to the colonel
Right.
before he stopped.
Seems unlikely.
Seems highly unlikely.
There's only one level of security too.
Right.
No other military personnel that he ran by while the security was like, "Hey, wait!" It was like gave a crap about it. I was like, "No, we're just gonna keep on going
It's just
all the
that
way into the war
master's
room."
Kids.
Yeah, we've seen this story before. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Ah, it's Tuesday again, everybody. Masters kids running in.
Yeah, well, all the other kids are running in too, so maybe they're just
maybe.
we've given up trying to keep these kids out of the place.
This is the scene where we are introduced to David Suchet, because right after this, it cuts to, where he is. He's meeting he's not the leader because he says at one point there's people above him.
Yeah, he's a
right?
colonel.
pilot, yeah.
He's a colonel.
But he, for all purposes in this movie, is the leader of that country because he's the only figurehead we ever see.
The highest figure.
Yep.
And I think he does a pretty good job. He's pretty intimidating
Yeah, he's a good bad guy.
in that scene. But what turned it into unintentional comedy to me is we have the scene of him, you American and you guys are gonna pay for violating our sovereign nation and all. He's like in this very intense scene. Smash cut to prom.
Yes, I thought that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like beating up his dad, and he's like,
Right.
and then like, boom.
And then it's like immediate. I was like, wow,
And
it
then
was
I
jarring.
thought the other thing that was the African American kids are amazing dancers.
Yes, and the two only
The only-
African American people in the room are dating as well.
Yeah,
that seemed a
it's
little forced.
That
The only two people doing the
and
dance
then
off.
Chappie dances too later on, so
Yes.
it's kind of like the happy.
It's funny because every time they cut to different parts of the room and they were cheering on the dance off, I was looking for another black person.
Right? No, that was the only two, and they were dating.
Couldn't find one at all.
Like lack of option dating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was a little cultural.
But it was just in a general sense,
That's the '80s for you.
totally, completely. The tone of the movie just smashes back and forth between, teenage hijinks to terrorist POW. After the prom, which nothing really happens at prom and graduation other than, they find out that dad's going to get hung in 3 days, like on the way back to the car.
Flashback scene.
Yes, well, we'll get to that. But he essentially goes back and tries one more time to talk to the military guy, right? To say, like,
To see what they're doing.
what are you going to do? Are you going to do anything? And he gets the runaround, right? I mean, it's clear the United States is not going to do anything to upset this sovereign nation. Why are they afraid of this country? I guess is my question. They've got like
You
6
saw it,
MiGs.
oil.
They've got like 6 MiGs.
They were okay getting involved once they didn't have oil anymore. That's all I could figure out from the whole movie.
Which wasn't actually oil storage tanks, was water, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that was a shot of the water
sewage
clarifiers at a sewage treatment plant. Those weren't oil tanks.
Yeah,
Well,
you
they
don't
couldn't
leave
afford
oil
to blow up oil tanks.
Don't leave oil exposed like that.
He's like, kid, we don't need your help. We can't do anything. Go back and cut some more sleeves off your hoodies. Every time this kid showed up.
Yeah, I do remember the hoodie sleeve.
It's
All right,
ridiculous.
so here's what I thought was interesting on those scenes. Like,
Yeah.
even Chappie's like, I think that's a Chappie, Charles Sinclair,
Yeah.
which I like his name, Charles, better. He's like, let the government, you're better off, let the government do his thing, your dad's in better hands. Like, that was rational thing, right? So everyone was like thinking the government was going to do something. They decide not to, and the kids are all like, no, we got to do something or all that. But I thought up to that point that made sense. They would, that they were urging
Him to
restraint.
wait.
I think it
Calm.
was, I think that was, Chappie had the experience of being a long-time Air Force pilot. He's seen this thing before.
Yeah.
Knows we can't just go in guns a-blazing. Let's let the process play out.
That's one of the first scenes where Lou Gossett Jr. really lets go. When he goes off about seeing the guys die and he's
That's right. I see guys' guts spilled on the rice paddies of Vietnam. So you better understand that I give a shirt. So we
With
didn't say
sleeves.
shirt.
Yep.
Not cut off.
Yep.
I gave this country 22 fracking years of my life. Like, Lou,
Yeah, he goes off on that one.
chill,
he let
brother.
it out on that one.
In general, he was dialed in this movie.
Yeah,
I felt
absolutely.
like,
I felt like watching it the third or this time around. When I told you guys how horrible I thought this movie was after I watched it the other time, I thought actually his acting was decent in this. It was kind of over the top, but it was good.
No, he was,
Problem was he's working against this Doug Masters kid who's terrible.
which may be why he felt like he had to like dial it up, right?
Well, it's like
he had
when
to
you're
dial
playing-
it up for everybody else in the movie is what he had to do.
When you're playing handball against a brick wall, everything is good. When you're playing handball against a sheet that's strung up between two poles, not so good. So,
All right, we got our sheet on 2 poles award. We're gonna have to give So when he comes back to meet Chappie again, this is in the simulator, right? So he goes back, and I want to make sure we mention this awesome flight simulator that they have in this movie, where it's just the same footage from Dad's dogfight, but just color corrected to look,
That's exactly what my wife said. She's like, "That's the same footage from the opening scene." I'm like, "Yep."
So I love that she watched this movie with you.
Yeah.
Did she like any part of it at all? I mean, I know she fell asleep for the last half hour.
I would say probably not, since she shamed me into not watching it again.
Oh, man.
My wife was very disappointed with the Masters acting.
Oh, really?
Masters. She was like, he's so terrible. He has no emotion.
So Melissa watched this with you, too?
They had time ago. Actually,
Okay.
she watched me. She did remind me, by the way, in Cobra Kai,
Yeah.
at the beginning of that show, Johnny is watching this movie. It's like his favorite film.
Yes, Johnny Lawrence.
Which is interesting because there's some guys from...
One of the kids, the kid that rode the back, the kid that messed with the old cap was a Cobra Kai
he was a
student
Cobra Kai from the
from
original
Karate
movie.
Kid, which is probably why in the series they made it
brought it
Johnny Lawrence's favorite movie.
Yeah, I
is
did
Iron Eagle.
notice too when I looked through the IMDb. There were a couple like Karate Kid
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
alum in this movie.
that was 1984, and so this was 2 years later, and all those guys were
We need
starting
some more
to get some
Bad
work.
Kids. What was that karate movie? Bad Kids.
Yeah, so So I want to get to what you talked about. He goes in the simulator. He meets Chappie. This is the second time where they actually have a conversation, and we find out he's a retired. What's his rank? I don't remember.
Colonel. He's a colonel.
He's a colonel.
He's a
Okay,
colonel.
so he's a retired
Military
colonel.
Reserves.
He's in the reserves now, right? But he's not active duty anymore.
Right.
And at this point, he starts to try and convince him to help him do something because the army's not going to do anything.
3 days.
3 days.
He's only got 3 days.
And we have this flashback scene to his dad
Yep.
taking his son up in an F-16.
Yep.
Yes.
Letting him fly the F-16.
Which is very cool. Father-son bonding moment.
It is.
Everybody
It's
should-
insane.
Everybody should experience
But
that.
what,
And,
but I love the point you made the other day about how he's like, Doug, if they find out you're in here, and then he takes his helmet off as they're walking down the tarmac. I'm like, that's your kid. Was he in the plane with you? Like, no, he just was
He's just in a flight
just
suit.
dressed
full
up like
flight
me.
suit and dressed up
Right.
like me.
But then I thought he was like the world's best Cessna pilot. Though. Why is he flying an F-16?
yeah.
He gets out and he leaves the helmet on while he's talking to the guy, right? He's like, I heard some music while we were up there. You might want to get that looked at.
Yeah.
Like just clearly saying,
I know.
I know your kid is up there with you.
Well, he had to have known.
Right.
Right. But then as soon as that guy walks away, the kid takes his helmet off and they're walking down the tarmac in full view of everybody. Right. You know how much trouble I'd get in if they knew that you were here?
Right.
Bro, put your helmet back on, man, and buckle the flight mask.
But put it all down, man. What do you?
Honestly, you think that a father is going to jeopardize his entire military career to joyride with his kid?
He would if he knew that they were just going to leave him over in Libya. I mean, sovereign nation, unnamed. Otherwise, how does he train his rescuer? I mean,
Okay,
I get.
so here's the other thing about my
Plot
life
armor.
that's weirdly connected to this movie is
Okay.
I've actually been in a Marine Corps FA-18 flight simulator.
Oh,
We had connections when we lived in Southern California to El Toro Air Force Base. And
Nice.
it was even more impressive than that one.
yeah?
Very, very cool. It was like a full
Yeah.
cockpit and a giant 3D screen all around. It was
I
awesome.
couldn't tell you which one I was in because I wasn't paying that much attention. But when I went to Texas A&M for the, we did Chicago Best and then Texas Best engineering thing in high school.
Yeah.
I went there. I actually got to fly one of their simulators
Nice.
as well. So that was kind of
So that can happen.
simulator time.
Simulator time.
Simulate
I crashed it,
3,000 hours of simulator time?
Yeah.
That's
This
a lot.
kid somehow
That's a lot.
weaseled his way into
He did say he failed a class or something though.
right. But I'm saying how did he
It wouldn't have happened.
essentially without the Air Force realizing it get a free training? So like, over the course of actual flight hours, simulator hours, all the stuff while still in high school.
Well, I mean, you go around how all the kids were running around. I mean,
Yeah.
it seemed like all their parents were pretty dopey anyway. I mean, it's just like, well, we just sneak in a simulator, we sneak in and get intelligence out of
Well,
the
and that's the thing.
mainframe. I mean,
Again,
Yeah.
we are besmirching the name of American intelligence because if that guy couldn't tell his daughters were up to something, he should
Well,
not have been.
this
in
is
Which is
intelligence.
will you just go over there and get whatever it is you came
Yeah.
here for while I leave the room?
and put it in
is
his
the,
sleeve, and I'll get you a clearance to take it out of here.
This is the fundamental
Whatever it is.
reason the United States
Yeah.
Air Force backed out of support in any cooperation with this movie. And
Yes.
they had to go to the Israelis
Yep.
to get the airplanes.
Yes.
because
It's all Israeli
it made
planes.
them look like a bunch of rubes.
The Air Force read the script and they're like, we're not doing
We're
this.
not
Right.
doing this.
Those kids would be in jail immediately.
Well, let's talk about that because that's kind of the next part of the movie is where the kids kind of take over the base.
Right.
I mean,
So to
whether they were
speak.
trying to take over the base or not, if you're there and there's a bunch of people around in a live ammunition bay and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
you're throwing firecrackers in a barrel and making people think they're being shot
That's a
at,
good
we're gonna find whoever that was.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're just running around. All they needed was
He's wearing he's got like a general outfit.
Yes.
on,
You're
the
right.
Guys in
Right.
fatigue.
all they need is the Benny Hill music. Like it's what they're all running around like.
That's what makes this a great movie.
Well, here's the other thing. There's no way in the world they could have. There's no way in the world they could accomplish this mission in 3 days.
No.
And there's no way that it was only 3 days in the filming that they accomplished it.
No, that was 2 weeks
Yeah.
at least. We saw them in 14 different outfits between then and when they actually left.
So that's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah,
why,
you're nuts.
why not give them more time? Why not say he's going to be executed in 2 weeks, right? So that you can.
Make it more plausible.
Government
Yeah.
you can still say the government's not going to do anything.
No.
So you have that pressure to still make it happen.
Right.
This movie made the Air Force look like total idiots.
Yes.
Yeah, if these couple of kids can do this in 3 days and the military didn't want to do anything about it, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't seen the movie, these kids, some of them had parents that worked there. Some of them, if they did, they didn't show that they did. And they go in and they all have separate missions. This guy's job is to get this intelligence from this lady and hack the computer. These girls are going to go get some aerial photographs from their dad. And I don't know what the guys with the firecrackers were trying to get, Reggie and
They were
Tony.
distracting so that Milo could get into the other room with the computer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And
And they were
Yeah.
upfitting getting the airplanes.
Right. And
And
so
the security guy can be distracted by the love attentions of a teenage girl
that's right.
Right.
from a live ammunition store or ammunition store. Yeah.
Right. And, my favorite one was Milo telling the lady, like, oh, I'll take care
I'll
of it.
take care of
I'll
it."
take care of this. Just, she's like, oh, yeah, you got this?
Yeah,
No,
that was
It's
the one
such a-
where they were coming up and the guard and with the teenage girl. My wife's like, she just rolled her eyes. She's like, yeah, right. Sure, I'll let you in.
Well, at least he only let one of them in, though, right? He's like, just
Yeah.
one of you can go. The other
My
thing is-
sister was telling my mom that she's upset that you don't call her more. All right, just one of you guys.
there are also apparently a lot of overweight people in the Air Force.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife said that too. She's like, I thought he was in the Air Force. Why is that colonel like an
Colonel
offensive
pretty
lineman?
heavy.
He just
The one kid gave his dad some food, and he's like, "Oh, this is great. Mom never lets me eat this." He's like, "I'll take it."
Here's the
letting you
thing. I will stretch. I will give you a certain amount of latitude when you try and pull off these kind of implausible things, right? But here's my problem. They don't just pull a few tricks to sneak out some information. They take control and maintain control
Yes.
for
Yes.
days, and he's able to get jets and missiles whenever they want.
Fully live and
Fully live.
Yes.
For multiple days. They don't I get you sneak out one, they figure it out, they clamp down, and then it's over.
Including a Hades.
Yeah.
right. I mean, they loaded up for a training run,
Twice.
Which that
yeah,
makes
twice.
sense. You could do that.
and then they loaded up again. Somehow get refuelers,
Right.
for their little journey over to the sovereign nation
We're
Yeah,
of.
assuming all the way across the Pacific.
I tried to
where were
assume-
they?
Well,
Right.
it would be all across the states, all across the Atlantic, all across the Mediterranean.
Right.
Right.
how
Yeah.
did
I
do
looked
that.
up how long would it take to go from California, because it's clear it's California,
yeah.
California
Yeah.
to Middle East, and I don't know, it's like 10, 20. I couldn't actually.
20 out, and they almost filmed every
he
minute
did
of it
say-
because it was
Yeah.
really long to get there.
They did say that, you've been in here for blah, blah, blah. 16 hours later, it doesn't seem like such a good idea or whatever.
Yeah.
Was there
Right.
actually a
The cereal you
refueler scene, though?
There was.
Yes.
There was.
Oh, I must
Early
have,
one.
I must have.
It was like the first one they had to do.
Yeah.
They
That was
did
the
like
I must have been
because
distracted.
Chappie was kind of guiding them up and said, "Okay, do whatever," and,
And that's
make
why-
sure, yeah.
Now, is this so full service or you got to get out and pump it for us?
That's just really the main issue is that they were able to. I could distract a couple adults, grab some intelligence, but the way they were able to maintain control of an Air Force base,
Right.
that's where I can't stretch that far.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
No, it seems ridiculous, but it's
Yeah.
entertaining.
And all these, it is entertaining, but I mean, all these kids just with complete unfettered access to
Classified information.
classified information is bad enough, but then live missiles and Hades bombs, and I'm like,
I don't think Hades bomb exists. Actually.
if they'd had a
It
nuke,
seems so.
I just kept
Not
thinking about
called
Broken
that
Arrow.
anyway.
I just kept thinking about Broken Arrow,
Yeah.
and all they went through to try and steal, a couple of nukes. I'm like, if they had just gotten the kids from Iron Eagle,
They could have. Those kids would have had it stolen in
Yeah,
5 minutes.
That James Bond movie where they steal that nuclear plane.
They would have
and
gave it to him
kill that
thinking it
guy
was
and
okay.
Eyeball things and all kinds
Yes.
of stuff. They have to plastic surgery and all that. They just need those kids from Iron Eagle.
oh my gosh. And then we get this kind of training sequence where Chappie finally decides, all right, I'm in, right? Because I don't want to see this guy get killed. And he starts training the Eagles,
Yeah.
right? Which is this club. They have a pretty sweet clubhouse.
Yeah, I was
actually.
going to say,
yeah.
why do
That
all
was-
the teen movies I see, they have amazing clubhouses?
Yeah.
They have
That was
airplanes.
nice.
Of course, they'd have a clubhouse.
Well, they'd have to. Where are you going to meet after you're done flying your airplane?
Right.
Or overthrowing the
done-
Air Force.
Once you're done practicing the snake.
And they have a training flight. This is what I wanted to get to. So there's this kind of a montage where Chappie's like trying to chain all these kids, and the kids are up to hijinks, and he's like, "Oh, you guys, we got 3 days only," and eventually they have the first, as you say, of 2 times they get fully loaded live ammunition jets, and they take him on this training sequence.
Yep.
The running bit is supposed to be that he can't hit anything
He can't fly without music, man.
or fly without music.
Yeah.
Well, there's a funny little scene too when they get all the stuff to Chappie.
Yeah.
And he's going to start playing, and he hits the jukebox, and the kid says, "How can you work with this music?" or something.
Right. That's what I thought was funny.
That's
and,
right.
And I said that to my wife too this last time we watched it. I was like, and it's funny because in a moment he's about to tell him to turn that crap off while he's trying to do something.
But here's the thing, though. Was this because I wrote down, like, when he asked him, "Do you want to go? Does he like Italian food?" So that was before this, right? What we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
I just want to back up there because who's getting Italian food at a blues club?
Spankies, come on, Spankies.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting ribs there or something. You're not getting spaghetti.
How dare you?
So you were, I love. So you were cool with the
number of blues clubs.
You're fine with the coup of taking over, but that's where you drew the line.
Well, no, I'm not fine with the coup either. I thought that was implausible.
You're like, I'm done with this movie. He's getting pasta at a blues club.
And then the second pilot's going to come around. Wait, second pilot, who's flying? Well, me, of course. I'm going to take out these 2 pepperonis right here.
Just go to the local pizza joint.
Yes, honestly, that's a great point.
Chappie had some friends that needed in this movie, or he wasn't doing it.
Right.
He must have.
That's how Lou Gossett was like, if my cousin's blues club can be in the movie, then I'll do 4 of them.
Clubs I've been. I'll sign up for 4. I love blues clubs.
We'll be down for 4.
That's right.
But I've never been to a blues club where they're serving spaghetti or pizza. It's ribs and like good bar food, man.
Yeah, right, exactly. Did you guys know, I don't know if you knew this, but there was almost an international incident while they were filming this movie.
I did see that.
Did you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Oh. So essentially the Israelis were sending fighters to, what country was it? I don't remember. Was it Libya?
No, they were filming the movie.
They were filming the movie, yes,
And
but
they
then
were loaded with actual weapons.
right, and so they
It was Lebanon.
Lebanon. Thank you. They sent some of their own planes and actually called for 2 of the planes,
Film plane.
the film planes, to go, not remembering that they were being used for filming, and they were painted like U.S. Air Force.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And these guys were redirected to go to Lebanon with payloads, and before they got there, they realized what was happening and called them off. Like, we almost had U.S. Air Force planes bombing Lebanon in 1985.
Yeah, do you think Lebanon would have believed if they had gone through with it? No, we swear it's just for a movie. Oh, and by the way, the bad guys are like,
Could you imagine if that had happened?
It could be Lebanon. I guess I never thought about that.
It could
have
be.
been Lebanon as well at the same time.
But that would have been insane. That this movie almost actually started a real life incident.
So we almost had a sovereign nation incident here.
Yes.
Right.
Not Libya.
That's right.
Because they had to paint these Air Force planes, these Israeli planes, and paint them like they were U.S. Air Force. Yeah, and so we're just going to get to the point, because everything up to this point is just stalling. The whole middle part of this movie is
That's what we're doing, right?
Stalling.
Right now?
That's what we're doing right now. We're up in a
trying to get to the
we're
end.
climbing up, and we're about to stall out here.
we've already
Because the
refueled.
landing gear's still up. That's right. We're still down. Haven't put it up yet.
But before we get to the actual mission, which is where Chappie and Doug, Flybaby, take off to go rescue his father. This is the whole crux of the movie, that no one will do anything, so he's going to get in an F-16 himself, a teenager, along with Chappie, and we're going across the ocean, and we're going to go get Dad, right?
Yep.
And finally it gets to the point after 3 days of prep that they're going to go and fly this mission. But what I thought was the best acted scene in the entire movie was, and worth mentioning, was Lou Gossett Jr.'s speech about what I think was in reference to the Tuskegee Airmen, because the guy that this character is based off of was a member of that. And he tells that story about how you saw that picture of like 4 or 5 guys and how they all got killed. And he said, yep, each of them thought they were ready too.
Yeah.
And, parts of them were burning up on the ground, parts of them up in the air. And I just thought that was a really well acted scene that had no business being in this movie.
Right.
So it stuck out like a sore thumb.
Right.
But just great job.
There was 2 very good dramatic performances and an otherwise comedy
Right.
portrayal of a drama. I mean, yeah.
Right.
And then it's super cheesy. You're the best crew I've ever worked with.
Yep.
Like, come on, man.
Really?
Yes. All that-
22 years
22
in.
years.
22 years.
goddamn years.
Pretty good. It's a pretty good imitation, actually. All right, so we're here. They're going to fly the mission. They get another 2 more super loaded jets. The Air Force is like, seems fine. Go ahead and take these planes.
They have an approved
out.
flight plan. All right.
Yeah.
They have an approved flight plan
Yes.
across the United States.
I know.
Halfway across the Atlantic to refueling
Yeah.
and then into the Mediterranean, and that's where they deviate from their flight plan for the first point, is when they're crossing the Mediterranean and then they drop below
Right.
whatever altitude, and that's where they deviate from their flight plan. Otherwise, they're A-OK, 100%, no problem doing all of this 20-something hours in the plane. My problem is, at that point, they're talking about being 7 minutes late. They're 7 minutes behind, right?
Yeah.
These planes are fast.
Yeah.
You can make up 7 minutes on your
Only
schedule
if you put on the music.
just by just by increasing fuel consumption a little bit. But he turns on the music and makes up half of it, and they end up flying right into training mission. If they would have burned a little bit of fuel and got there on time before their training mission goes up, they could have saved all that fuel maneuvering with the first airplanes, and
Yes.
Chappie wouldn't have been shot down.
Yes.
How much easier is this whole movie if they just, get there on time?
Get there on time.
Right.
All this planning, they were friggin' 4 minutes late.
I've tried very hard to not harp too much on some of the insane plane stuff that they got wrong, but I feel like they got the fuel amount wrong. I mean, he said one point they have 800 pounds of fuel
Only 800 pounds of fuel left. That's
and
about
like 3 seconds on afterburners.
120 gallons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can't be very long.
Right. It can't be.
And they only had 30 rounds.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when it was
by the
done, there
time-
was only
yeah.
30 rounds left.
And his dad's like,
Yeah.
well, that's not enough to fight. No kidding.
Well, we better get out here. We better get out here.
First time you pull the trigger.
We're burning fuel like
Well.
this. We're not going to make it.
They did take a super long time to get there. Do we have to show the entire flight across the Atlantic Ocean? I mean, it was like, let's get to the
Well, that
mission.
gets
They
the
had to
movie
talk
down
and
to hour
stuff,
45.
Right there. Right there. I thought in general the rescue mission wasn't bad. It was an entertaining part of the movie. I mean, some definite ridiculousness. I thought the only part that was a little bit heavy-handed to me was the tape, the thing that Chappie
Oh, yeah.
recorded.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How did you feel about that?
The tape, it was kind of I don't know. I guess I kind of liked it.
Oh,
Kinda
did
left
you?
them with the instructions on how to get through it, right? Because
Yeah.
how I would look at it, I guess, is you could kind of see Chappie kind of come around and say, okay, this kid's dad's like locked up overseas, about to be hung in, this sovereign nation of wherever, Libya. And I think it was kind of like Chappie was taking on that role of his dad,
Yeah.
right? And said, okay, here's how you're going to get through this to save your dad. So I thought it was
Okay.
okay. I thought it was okay.
Did he have all that time in the midst of a fight to go fly up into the
that's
clouds
question whether he could have had enough time to do
and listen to
that's-
it?
That's another
Yeah,
couple
that's-
of minutes that would have been spent. They wouldn't have been ready. Again, they
Right.
drop the bomb. They get down. They get the dad. He's in the plane. They get going away. And
Yeah.
will this missile launch while on the ground? I don't know. Never tried it. Well, of course you've never friggin' tried it. This isn't something you would train.
You don't fire missiles on the ground.
And I would have to think it wouldn't work because every time you see these things in the Top Gun movies, they fall off the wings and then light. The thing would have been on the ground
Right.
before
Just
it lit.
spinning in a circle.
So I don't think
We better
that
get
would
outta
work either. But yeah, they would have been back up before they had the last 2 minutes to fix the.
It drops.
Oh,
Air
right.
Force,
Air Force ordnance goes straight off the wing.
wing.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
right.
That's Navy Air Force again. Yeah, I ultimately Doug is able to land, and they just put his father out at the end of the runway for him to pick up.
Yep.
Because he
After they
somehow
shot him.
convinced.
Yeah.
And why did
Yeah.
the dad realize that there's potential sniper options here? Like he's like, yeah, woo, boy, they're coming, and then he gets shot.
Right.
I would've
Well,
stayed
'cause
in
he's
the
a pilot.
Jeep or gotten
He's not a
down.
groundman,
Well, this
you
is
know?
true.
So he
Air
puts him,
Force
but they put him
guy.
out there essentially because he somehow convinced them that there's a whole squadron
Yes.
Yeah.
of fighters out there. Okay, fine.
The other thing I noticed is everything on the ground in the unlabeled country of Libya is explosive.
Everything is.
Yes.
Everything.
Dude,
Yeah,
that,
Tents,
that little
towers.
tower.
Tower, the radio
Yeah.
tower.
Cars. I mean,
Well, and
everything
he shot.
blows up.
He happened to shoot
Yeah.
that one explosive part of the radio tower with bullets. He didn't
Right.
shoot a missile at it.
Right, no, that's-
Done.
Well, that's yeah.
I mean, I appreciate a good explosion, but
Listen,
I need well-timed explosions.
Radio
If
tower
everything is
doubles as a
exploding-
fuel tank.
there's so many times in that final battle.
All the tube is full of fuel in the radio tower.
Yeah, why is that so explosive?
It's the bullets
3 gallons.
because it's this is one of my biggest problems with that last scene is the explosive bullets. Planes do not explode in fireballs when you just shoot them with the cannon.
No, they
Yeah.
don't.
Okay.
If you shoot the right part of the
If you generally shoot a plane with the cannon, it might disable it. It could, take it down.
Like Chappie's plane?
Like Chappie's
Right.
plane,
Exactly.
it could kill the pilot. It's not generally going to do more damage than missiles do to an airplane.
Amazingly, the bullets exploded a plane just like a missile exploded.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's
They
just-
only
Everything
had the
exploded
one
the same
explosion,
way.
and those were clearly RC planes that blew up.
I was just gonna say, I
They
was
were
like,
not
those
moving.
are.
They were just stuck in the air. Bam.
I was like, did they go to some kid's model shelf and pull these planes off and blow them up? Because it looked like
I don't
there's
know,
wood
but-
splinters.
That's
all
what I
over.
was going to say. They were clearly made of wood.
I will give the explosive people or the special effects credit because when I tried to blow up my models with firecrackers, they never were that impressive. So they knew how to blow them up well, but yeah,
I
it
mean,
was
Simtex
obvious.
is better than
every time.
Black Cat.
They would have been better off taking like Batman of the '60s and just putting pow and kaboom on there.
Oh my God, that would have been such a better movie.
It would have fit the tone.
Every single one of these.
It's-
And when he punched him in the face
Yeah,
after the Cessna
yeah,
wreck,
Yeah.
bam!
Do you hear me now?
Every time a plane got exploded, whether it was by cannons or missiles, it was essentially the
Kablow.
same
Yeah.
1 or 2 shots.
Yes.
But it would cut to it, and it would be clearly stationary.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And they tried to get the explosion so close to the cut that you couldn't tell, but you could clearly tell.
Right.
For a split second, this plane is not moving, and then it's like on a stick or something, and then it just blows up.
Yep.
And they had like 2 of those shots they used
Right.
over and over and over again.
And they always
But-
had to show the gun firing too.
Fighters don't radar lock and then shoot heat-seeking cannon fire at airplanes. But that is exactly what happened multiple times.
And I'm pretty sure once
Radar
you
lock.
get radar lock with the missile, you can't spin out of the way of it like that. The whole point is heat seeking.
He was barrel rolling to avoid surface-to-air missiles, which I've never, ever understood
Oh,
to
and
be
then, but that's weird because he's turning, then all of a sudden it blows up because he shoots it.
Well, he never,
How
right.
exactly did he get back?
But he
around?
doesn't fire a single flare or anything.
Right. That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like
Chaff and all
they're firing these missiles and
No
nobody's
countermeasure.
No, none. Just a barrel roll. Well,
Just an altitude
if
change.
it's a heat-seeking missile, it doesn't matter if you barrel
You've
roll.
played Afterburner. When that missile's coming, you just move out of the way.
That's right.
We have played the video game, people. We've been training for this.
I think the special effects guys base this all on Afterburner. That's, I think, what happened. But Dad is saying, Dad is Tim Thomerson from Air America. The old
yes.
guy that was 42 years old that we
Bobo.
were so
Yeah.
shocked.
Bobo.
That was Bobo
He
from
wasn't
his
doing
dad.
any coloring though.
He was.
He didn't
He
have
wasn't.
time to color.
But I love that we've done our second Tim Thomerson movie already.
in a row, back to back
Back to back.
graphics. You're welcome.
And
Tim.
he loved doing airplane movies, I guess, back in the day. My favorite part is when Dad gets into the plane and he's rescuing him, and he says, do you think you can get us out? Do you think you can handle it? He's like, do you think you can handle the music? Cue soft 80s synth. Oh.
The part
That's
I
bad.
laughed out loud, like serious laugh, is
Yeah.
the Hades bomb. There's this giant flame.
yeah.
Fight them through the fire, and so the jeeps go through and they catch and they blow up.
Oh yeah, they sent the guy on a
And then
motorcycle.
the guy in the motorcycle. I'm like, send the motorcycle and the sidecar through it.
Get
The
him
jeeps
there.
didn't make it. I was just laughing. I'm like, are you kidding me? The motorcycle's gonna go.
Next up, send in the guy on the camel.
That's right. That was supposed to be the next guy.
And then they get that giant truck thing, right? But I'm like,
Yes.
the motorcycles, you just saw these jeeps blow up, and you're gonna see the motorcycle.
Maybe it was the motorcyclist who's like, I can do
I
this.
can do it. I was
It was
so
Evil
like,
Knievel's
kidding me?
Iranian cousin, Bulgarian cousin.
Oh my gosh.
That was so funny.
Thank you for bringing that up because it was totally
that was,
ridiculous.
good.
that was the biggest laugh.
That was
going to
be on one of my little things, but
And
yeah,
that was why they
moment.
fired. They asked the stupid question: can you fire a missile from the tarmac because this garbage truck or whatever is coming through the fire?
We're about to
to
get
come.
eaten for breakfast,
And we're about to get eaten for breakfast.
which I thought was a decent line.
It was fine. It was fine.
There weren't very
but-
many lines in this movie.
No, there really wasn't.
No.
Most of the stuff was
I-
pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
The stuff that was good was Lou Gossett's kind of dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so dad is rescued and no one is court-martialed.
No.
Amazingly.
Right.
This coup takes place.
Because they don't want people to know that it's possible for somebody to do this to them.
Yeah, so
You've
here's
got
the
a
thing on that.
reservist taking over a couple F-16s.
With a teenager.
With a
You're
teenager.
going to send a teenager that just accomplished an amazing feat to the Air Force Academy, where I'm absolutely positive he will not talk about accomplishing that most amazing.
Oh, of course not. Does he seem like the type to be
Yeah.
braggadocious?
And you're like, we want the secret, but you have the teenager and the colonel coming off of the plane after they have rescued.
Right.
So people aren't going to ask questions about why exactly is the kid there? Why is this colonel
Well, even
there?
the reporter's like, I don't know who this is, but he seems to have a huge following over here.
He flew over to meet his father.
He flew over to meet his father. Right. But
Yep.
you're like, why not just
On
not let
what looked
anyone
like
know
Air Force
he was
One.
there at all? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was stupid.
That was a little bit dumb. All
On
right.
Air Force 1.5.
Right.
Now's the time that we have. If there's anything on your notepad or something that you noticed, now is the time to talk about
All right, here's mine.
the little things.
Oh, sorry, I jumped it.
No, that's okay.
Little things.
You can say it.
We just like to keep pressing the button.
David Suchet as the colonel.
Yes.
I don't know his real name in the
Yes.
movie. At the ending sequences, the man can move in light speed.
Oh,
He's like at his headquarters, and then he's in the field, and he sees the tanks get exploded. Then he's at the tower, and then he's out of the tower before it explodes.
yes.
And then he's in a plane.
Who is your most heavily armed?
He was in the tower 1 second before it
Yeah, 'cause
exploded.
he
I don't know
was
how he got
diving,
away.
And then the thing
Right.
explodes. You're like, there's no way he got out of that. And how does he go from all those places so quickly? It's amazing.
Why didn't he just teleport into the plane?
Yeah,
Instead of having him
seriously,
land. What a waste of
seriously.
time.
And when I also love how when he gets the pilot down there, he like yells at him to get out of that plane and get out of that flight suit, like it was his fault. Like, you told me to come up here, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
We only have one flight suit. We have to share this. He didn't have his own flight suit.
Right.
Yes.
Budget, budgetary.
I got one. When he's at the hot dog stand in the beginning of the movie, and he gets the note from the Air Force Academy that he has not been accepted,
Right.
and he crumples it up and throws it, and 3 seconds later, the guy's got the note on the microphone inside the hot dog place, reading it for everybody. Space and time mean nothing.
Yes.
He chucked it, and go back and watch, count. 4 or 5 seconds maximum.
Yeah, it wasn't
He's
long.
in there reading the thing.
I watched this movie so many times as a kid. We flipped this on. My wife and daughter were both in the room. My wife actually sat and watched some of it. My daughter was pacing around the kitchen waiting for an excuse to leave.
Yeah.
And we had literally been watching this, and it's there, and he starts reading it, and I verbatim went through, and I said what this note is going to say, and then crumble up, sidearm toss into the distance,
Yeah.
reread over intercom. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm giving notes. You know,
I
I'm
just-
giving stage notes before the scene happens.
I'm just
and my daughter
picturing-
watches it, and then she's like, shook her head. She's done.
I'm just picturing Notcher like booking it over, like as soon as he threw it.
Did they like throw it right at Notcher? He's just standing over
I was
there and
wondering, did he
catches
The
it.
wind caught
Catch
it.
it out of the air or just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Just
wind
ran by,
caught it,
snatched
blew
it,
into
runs
the, one of the girls on roller skates going by.
Right, right.
His buddies are like, "Yeah, you're gonna be in the Air Force Academy. You're awesome. You're gonna be the next." And then
Drum
he's
roll,
like, and they're
please.
like, "Well, you can't really be surprised because of whatever." And like, they're like totally dumping
They
maybe
them.
if you would have
flipped on
spent less time in a simulator, more time in a class, you wouldn't have got the F. I don't know. Just saying.
Anything else stick out to you guys? Any little thing from the movie?
I do have one. How did he get his club jacket in Germany?
Oh yeah,
Because he's dressed like he normally does, but he's in Ramstein Air Force Base.
that's a great point.
Good point.
Well, because they filmed all of it in the same place.
Yeah, that's true.
This is true. He had it in his locker. But yeah, I get what you're saying. That doesn't make a whole
I
lot
was
of sense.
disappointed he wasn't wearing his cool Cessna shirt though.
Well, I don't want to jump in with them unless you guys have one.
I hit it already. The
Okay.
Blues Club, the
Yes.
Blues.
the simulator looking like the
Lou's turning on and turning off of the jukebox is, when Fonzie does it, it's believable.
Right.
But he just is like hitting a obviously non-functional, like it.
Right.
The way the thing moves, there's something broken in that machine.
Yeah, certainly.
You know what I mean? He's hitting a broken machine.
There is one more plane thing that I want to mention, and then I'll get off of it, even though there's 47 more plane things that are wrong. This F-16 apparently has radar in its tail. I'm not sure how it's able to scan the air and use the radar and see the 6 MiGs coming in while it's on the tarmac when he picks up his dad, other than I spent some time on the internet looking into it, and other people, actual pilots talk about this movie and how that's the most ridiculous part to them. He's like, they're like, unless there's radar in the tail, and I don't think there is, there's no way he would have been able to see those 6 MiGs. They got the MiGs up while he's sitting on the tarmac with his dad.
And they're really not MiGs. They're French, Israeli adapted.
Trainers.
But I would love to, I bring that last point up to say, after having read what these pilots are saying, I would love to watch these kinds of movies with an actual Air Force pilot.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
That'd be awesome.
We'll watch 2, 3, and 4 with Air Force pilots.
Do we know any Air Force pilots?
And then we can review these same 4 pieces of footage.
My brother-in-law is in the Air Force, but he's not a pilot, but I'm sure he can hook us up with somebody that is.
Do the F-16s actually have that little box? It's the information box. It tells them so much stuff.
The news ticker?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
I bet you it's not a dot matrix display anymore.
No,
they've upgraded it.
They've upgraded it, I'm sure.
It's got a smartphone. It's got that's where your iPod docks. Because they're a couple generations behind.
My other little thing is this.
Yes.
So he goes in, the colonel's telling him a lot of details about what's going on, right? He's like, this is the situation. And right in the middle of it, he says, will you please just tell me what's going on? And I'm like, he's been telling you very clearly what's going on. You just interrupted him in the middle of the speech. Yes, he hasn't quite finished yet, Doug, but he's been very honest with you.
Doug is very impatient. He's very impatient.
I'm like, come on, kid. Which is very
He's only got 3 days.
That's right.
He's got 3 days.
3 days.
They've got 3 days to take over the entire base.
3 days to take 14. All right, guys, it's time to give this movie some awards, and we'll start, as we always do, our award section with the Will Patton Award for Intensity. And I've been mulling this over, and you guys didn't know this because I hadn't mentioned it yet, but I'm thinking about changing this award parameters slightly, and this allows me the opportunity to do that because
you don't have a choice.
I don't have a choice.
It's Lou. We know that.
It's Lou Gossett Jr.
Yes.
I think Will Patton himself, because I was thinking about the man himself, has played roles, while he's never the main character, around the same size that Lou is in this movie. Yeah. And I think the award should be more for the most intense person in the movie and not necessarily for
in a small
size of role.
Because I thought about the same when we did actually Postman, because that's why.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then he wasn't eligible for it. That was one of those things.
So I'll admit that we need to adjust that. So going forward, it'll just be the Will Patton Award for intensity, and role size will mean nothing.
Yeah. So we can skip that voting around this table because it's Lou.
We'll vote for you.
I don't know what other option you'd have. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree too. Since you're changing it, I'll change mine because I had Bobo.
Okay. All right.
I thought, well, he was all right as the dad, right? I thought he did all right, but
sure.
It definitely Lou Gossett Jr.
While no one ever gets to level 10 of the Will Patton intensity, that's where Will Patton lives.
Right.
I think Lou was about an 8.4 on the Will Patton scale of intensity. He got up there pretty high. He got pretty high.
He was good.
He was really, really intense.
And really, he didn't have like a major, huge part in the movie, right?
No,
I mean, he still was. I mean,
the first half of the movie, he's barely there.
Right.
The second half, he's always there, all over it. Yeah. All right, well, then that brings us to our Trash Can Full of Dirt Award,
Doug Master,
which is one that, my goodness, you could throw a dart at the cast list and hit somebody that's qualified for the Trash Can Full of Dirt or the sheet across 2 poles. Whatever you want to call it.
Doug Masters was in the movie a lot. He's the main character, and my God, anybody could have done that better.
So you're voting for Jason Gedrick.
I have to.
The main character.
We don't have a choice.
Well, we have choices, but...
Well, I mean, there's choices, but there's none more that stick out.
It really isn't. You can't. He's just not good.
He's not a good
You're
actor.
giving it to Jason Gedrick, too.
It's a great character and stuff like that. I don't think he played anywhere near as good of... The quality of acting that's required for that part.
Yeah.
And with the people you have to act against being Lou, and then, obviously the other small Air Force personnel on set.
Were far more charismatic than
Yes.
him.
Yeah. Yes. Reggie would have been way better. They just needed to recast it. It's Reggie.
Yeah.
Put Reggie in there.
Do we have to narrow it down? Because I would just... my initial thought was anybody not named Lou Gossett Jr.
Let's check with the judges. Yeah, we'll allow it.
I thought the mom actually was pretty good.
The mom,
The scene where they we finally found out and she's walking down the hall. That was actually pretty. That was actually. I felt like that was real.
And when they're leaving
Right. They on the way to the car, she tells her, "Oh, by the way, your dad's going to hate."
Yeah, I actually, if I had to narrow it down, I was going to say Doug's mom because both my wife and I were watching that and like, that's horrible. Just horrible. There's no way that they would have had that.
Yeah.
She would have held it together if she already knew during that graduation ceremony. No way.
No way. Yeah, so I also wrote down Jason Gedrick. It's on my list. So I was just surprised that you guys both did the same thing. But
who else you have.
you could have picked anybody, but he was so bad. I mean, he was terrible. Now, he's gone on to have a great career. So, Jason, I know that you love listening to every podcast that does Iron Eagle, so I'm sure you'll have a notification bell that rings or something. And we don't hate you, man.
We don't, not at all.
But he went on to have a great career. He's on almost every television show that has been out there. He's done lots and lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And so he's certainly improved his craft. But at this point, he'd only been in like one other movie, and he was clearly still learning.
This would have been a better movie if they wouldn't have shot the whole thing in 3 days.
They were like, Top Gun is coming out in the summer. We got to get this thing out here right now. Any movie that gets released in January, that's like usually a dumping ground for studios, and not a good sign. All right, top 3 performers, guys. Who gave the who gave the second and third best performance?
Lou Gossett Jr. and Lou Gossett Jr.
I'm going to go with Reggie for 3.
Yeah, I liked Reggie.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Reggie for 3. He's not a huge part in it, but I liked him in all of his scenes.
Yeah.
Great dancer.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go with the colonel on the other side of the football.
David Suchet.
Suchet, yeah. And then obviously Lou on top.
Lou on top. Anything different from you guys?
So I had Reggie 2 as my number 3. I threw in, since we went Lou Gossett for Will Patton, I slid in Tim Thomerson as my number 2, and then, of course, Lou is number 1.
There you go.
I'll go with Clint's list.
I
Can I just say the best line in the movie, it comes from Reggie.
Of course.
And he says, "Why aren't they?" Something they're talking early on about
Ronnie Reagan.
Yes, I wrote that down too.
But
How
he
does
says,
it go?
"We had Mr. Peanut in the White House before, but now we got a new guy. Why do you think they call him Ronnie Reagan?"
Didn't he do like a finger gun too or something? Yeah.
Yep.
Incredible.
Top quote.
Nice
the
job.
best quote.
Nice job.
That was a good one.
He's also got the other one where he's all flying, yes, dying, no.
That's right.
Yep.
So he has the best line.
Reggie's good. He probably was number 4 for me. I don't have him in my top 3, but I liked him. He was good. I had Tim Thomerson at number 3, David Suchet at number 2, and then, of course, Lou at number 1.
The little brother was all right.
Yeah, was that the kid from Flight of the Navigator? Because
like it.
I looked like it, didn't it?
Yeah.
Might have been.
Yeah, I was trying to find out
didn't
because
look
he
up
looked
into it.
familiar.
And I couldn't find him on the cast list because it's an adult picture down next to him, the name,
Yeah.
and I couldn't figure out who he was. So sorry about that, little brother. Here's the question that matters most.
Get out of here before I have to pound you. That scene for the little brother was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
She's a junior. She thinks I am too. He's closer to a junior in age than anybody else in the movie, by the way.
He might actually have been a junior. In that.
Would Arnold Schwarzenegger make this movie better?
Yes.
I agree.
He's too
yeah.
big. He couldn't
No,
get in the plane.
No, we will put a bubble on top of the
We've
plane.
been through this.
That's fine.
I think him as playing
Doug?
a teenager Doug Masters.
Yes.
Him at his age now playing a teenager.
That's what I'm saying.
Masters.
Because in 1986, he was obviously well into his 30s, but so were some of these guys.
Yeah, right.
And so if he had been in there, yes, I have to rescue my father, please. And he's like this huge guy.
Can you handle the music?
That's right. Arnold graduating from high school.
He's listening to like German techno music instead.
If these guys can be teenagers, Arnold could be a teenager. That would have been incredible to have Lou Gossett Jr. and Arnold.
Oh, yeah, that instantly makes us better.
They would have
100%.
dropped this in July right next to Top Gun.
This gets up to at least a 5.8 on IMDb.
But not still over Air America because that's a 5.9. So we
Yeah,
gotta-
I think. I don't think it gets over Air America. But
All right, guys. So is Iron Eagle a bad movie that rules, or a straight up good movie? What do you guys think?
Undeniably, this is a bad movie, and I believe, at least in my opinion,
Yes.
undeniably, it rules.
Okay. All right.
I cannot throw the "it rules" on. It's a bad movie. It's
That's
a bad
fair.
movie.
That's fair.
I'm all the way in. Bad movie that rules.
All right. I'm going to say this. I enjoy the movie. I enjoy talking about the movie with the three of you.
Yes.
but this is a bad movie, and that's full stop. But
And again,
this is more enjoyable than the movie.
I sat here with Ernest with you guys.
Yes.
If you didn't watch this movie when you were a little younger and enjoyed this movie,
Yeah.
you probably will not enjoy it.
Oh,
watching this through.
I fully agree. If I had seen it when you saw it,
Yeah.
I'm probably right there with you guys.
Because I was so infatuated with planes back then, and now, I mean, I know you do some flying RC stuff. I sell the stuff. I don't really do it that much. I don't think I'm as enthused with plane stuff.
Yeah.
What I loved about this movie more than anything else, just this last time I watched it, at the end,
Yeah.
it says movies like this, and it threw up Firebirds right off the hit. I was like, yes, I've been wanting to watch that one again so bad. So I got to watch that too. That is Helicopter Top Gun.
Helicopter
It is.
Top Gun.
I don't think I've ever seen that
It's
one.
enjoyable.
Well, we got to add that one to the list too. Is it
It's my next draft pick. I got so many next draft picks.
All right.
This is amazing.
fair enough? We also got to do the motocross version of
Yeah.
Rad, winner takes all, or something like, or winner take all.
Winner take all.
Is
Yeah.
Notcher in that movie?
I don't think so,
The
but
time frame is right. It's possible.
who knows? The Rad was just a Karate Kid ripoff, and then they're just putting Karate Kid.
Yeah, I
Karate
thought it
Kid,
was
like
Cockner, not Notcher.
Cockner. I'm thinking David Cockner, the comedian, the guy from Anchorman, the bald sports guy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for coming in today, and thank you for listening all the way to the end of an Iron Eagle episode. Look at you, you're a rock star.
You get 3 more coming up.
That's right. At some point, if
Next week, Iron Eagle 2.
if we're gonna go through
Then
all
Iron
5,
Eagle 4, then 3.
well, that's what the director did. He did 1 and 2. He skipped 3, and then he directed 4. So we can do the same thing. We can just skip 3 and do the Sidney Fury treatment. But look, we appreciate you've listened all the way through this. So thank you very much for supporting the show. If you want to follow along with us, we're most active on Facebook, which is facebook.com/badmoviesrule. Would you do us a favor and help us get the word out there? Would you either share the podcast with a friend, tell somebody about it, post it on your social medias, and if the app that you're listening to allows for reviews, which is mostly just Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review on there on iTunes. It'll really help the show get recognized and noticed the more reviews that we have out there. Unless you're going to give it a 1-star review. If you're going to do that, don't do that. Instead, just email your 1-star review to thisshowIstrash@gmail.com and rake us over the coals. We will read it on the show and all laugh and enjoy it together. So thank you guys all for listening. For Clint Bush, Ryan Mueller, and Charles Hewitt, I'm James Hauser. This has been Bad Movies Rule. Now, next week, we're going to discuss our first romantic comedy ever on the show.
Wow.
Ooh. Who here in the 80s was a big fan of Steve Guttenberg? Just me?
Yeah.
I don't know. Who that
Probably.
is.
Yeah.
He was the guy from Police Academy, the first few Police Academy movies, Short Circuit. He did a lot of that stuff, right?
Oh, Circus good.
He did a movie, a rom-com with Shelley Long called, well, it's actually gone by 2 different titles. Now it's known as The Boyfriend School, but it also used to be called Don't Tell Her It's Me, where he has a dating coach essentially turn him into he's a nerd. Now he's like a leather clad,
Story of Hitch.
kind of. And like Roxanne.
That's what I was going to say. Is this Roxanne?
Kind of, yeah. So we'll be doing that one. And my daughter is going to join us on the podcast for the first time. We're going to have 2 Hausers in the room.
I'm devastated. For the first time, we're going to have 2 houses in a room. Bob is going to be devastated you said that.
You know what I meant? I meant from my family.
Nope.
Might want to edit that one out.
You can't draw that back. I'm going to keep it.
I do some.
I am the one that has the power to decide what goes in and what doesn't.
I'm going to write it into an email at This Show Is Trash and make sure it gets seen.
She's excited to be part of the show. She's going to come in, and I'm excited to see how that goes. So join us for that one next week, The Boyfriend School. And otherwise, we will see you next time.
I almost feel like you're intentionally having her come in on a not Monday so I can't be here too.
Well, she's got this thing called school that she has to go to on Mondays.
It's not important.
Hey,
She is a senior, but she still has to show up.
she could be spending that time in the simulator.
In the flight simulator.